Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.
Oh, I love starting a show off at the end. That was the outro to our show that played there at the beginning, but we are here on Partnership for Profits. We're starting the show. We're not ending it. And we have an amazing guest today. Sorry for that little technical snafu there at the beginning, but we have Karl Krummenacher here, he was the definition of a serial entrepreneur, spent nearly 4 decades building and scaling companies, from inventing one of the first commercial movie to video systems, which I want to hear about, to pioneering direct mail tech, co-founding the largest indoor kart racing facility, leading both startups and public companies as a CEO. You've had big wins in your life, big setbacks. You've purposefully started over from what you just told me before we were coming on here, which is a crazy, interesting story to hear about. Karl, thank you so much for popping on with us today and giving us some time. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Will. It's nice to spend a little time with you today.
Absolutely. So Karl, tell me and our audience a little bit about you. The story you told me at the beginning about selling everything and kind of purposefully starting over to prove that it can be done. Tell us a little bit about that. That was just, you were telling me that and I was kind of blown away. So I want our audience to hear that.
Yeah, no problem. So it is an interesting pivot. It tends to get a lot of attention. As you said in my introduction, very generous. Thank you for that. I've worked pretty hard my whole life. I've been the C-level executive in a variety of roles in public and privately held companies, and always an entrepreneur. And I really thought the entirety of my life, based on some things my dad told me, which was essentially, look, if you can outwork the competition, get up a little earlier, stay up a little later, work a little harder, you'll always be okay. You'll do fine. And so that was sort of a seed that grew into a weed. I'd like to say a tree, but it created this hustle inside of me that, I was just always proud of the fact that I would outwork anyone. And it took its toll. When I was 26 years old, I had atrial fib. I was hospitalized. I had to get the shock on the chest, and that wasn't very pleasant.
Wow.
But I never broke that cycle until later in my life, when I actually got recruited. I'd built a bit of a reputation. Fortunately, it was a good one because I work hard and had some notable results. And somebody that had crossed my path actually invited me to head up a small little SaaS venture studio. It'd be the best idea. And for months, he would call and say, hey, you will one day be my president. And I was really flattered. And it came at a time coming out of COVID when I had worked really, really hard in a company I'd spent 9 years leading and loving, just adored the community, what I did. But it felt like a full circle moment for me because I had started my life in software. My partners and I wrote software that connected the first PCs back when DOS was the operating system into large corporate networks.
Mm-hmm.
And we got sold to Digital Equipment Corporation, but that happened because we were actually part of a venture studio, sort of. It was an incubator, tech center, St. Louis Technology Center. So this guy's recruiting me, and it sounded great, and it promised, to be a panacea of less work and more money. And I thought it'd be a full circle moment. I started in tech in an incubator-like setting. I would land in tech. Well, not all things that are shiny are gold. And it didn't turn out to be such a good fit. And I wound up in the hospital again, this time with, some illness. I don't even know what it was, but I was completely done. That was it for me. And so my wife and I talked, and we're like, this is nuts. Like, we're 60. This is when a lot of people are retiring. I'm still out there hustling and grinding. And what could we do to have meaning and purpose? And oddly enough, it was because we were thinking of moving from La Costa, California, where we had spent a beautiful 9 years, almost 10 years, to try something new. My son was admitted into UC Boulder in a physics program. We had to get him out there anyway. If you live in this state, you save on tuition. So we're like, well, let's go to Boulder. We looked at everything we'd accumulated over our life and said, what do we do with this? And after some prayer and just talking about it, we said, why don't we do something really bold? And so we decided to actually hold an estate sale. We sold everything we owned out of a beautiful Acosta home. liquidated all of our savings, and we decided to keep $10,000. My wife had a horse, a trailer, a truck to pull it. We each had a laptop and a bag of luggage, and we left California for Colorado. We gave it all to charity. And part of that reason was we wanted to be able to see the benefit of our giving while we were alive, not just have it distributed afterwards. But also there was some ego here, Will. If I'm honest, I had an ego, and I think I had something to prove, which was that anybody at any age could create a life of meaning and purpose that they really loved if they were willing to get off the hustle hamster wheel. So I think more than anything, it was sort of me with a forced play on myself to say, you got to do this. You got to prove that it's possible. And hey, and if it turns out, you'll have a good story to tell. So here we are. And that's what I did.
That's fascinating. And I think I applaud you for taking that leap. I think what's most interesting to me about that is doing that at that stage of your life, right? When most people are thinking about retiring and kind of taking what they've earned over the course of their life and enjoying those golden years, but you guys kind of went against the grain, and that's really, really fascinating. So you moved to Colorado with just very little, with the bare minimum, and you kind of start over. How does that work? Are you relying on the network that you've established earlier in your career to kind of help get new things going? What does that look like for you when you get there and it's like, okay, we're setting up shop here in Colorado. What do we do now? Where's your head at? What are you thinking? How do you start over at that stage?
Yeah. What were you thinking is the way to say that. Here's the thing, Will. When we left, we didn't have a place to stay. We knew there would be Airbnbs, furnished rentals. We did a little bit of research. We knew we'd spend somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 maybe a month. We had credit card. I had $180,000 worth of available credit on my credit card. So I knew, within 180 grand, I could probably get something going. And I was blessed. When I was in San Diego, I got to meet an amazing individual. His name's Roland Frazier. And he has a program called Epic. He's done, $500 million worth of business. He's been part of some very successful things. And he was something of a coach and a mentor, along with John Assaraf, who you might know from movies like The Secret, a very successful entrepreneur in his own right. And I think those two gentlemen had a profound impact on me. John, for being able to say, look, thoughts are things, and whatever you decide is what's going to happen. So just get your head where you need it to be. So to your point, where's my head? It was in possibility. It was like, I'm going to be open to the possibility. I'm going to embrace, this idea of adventure for us, which my wife and I both appreciate. And then with Roland, it was, look, Karl, you've done so much. Why don't you go do consulting for equity? And another friend in a mastermind I was in named Ed Rush said, don't do consulting, whatever you do, because you're expected to work too hard. Be an advisor. And I'm like, what is that? Like, what is being an advisor? He goes, look, here's the thing. You're 60 years old. You've done a thing or two, and you've got hard-earned wisdom, which allows you to help people get unstuck. What did you do at your last, big gig, which was a group called Mindshare, where I coached health professionals, and my partner and I helped us birth multiple 7-figure brands. We could always get people unstuck. So we had a proven track record of coaching and advising. And so it was a completely foreign model to me. But what I decided to do is learn about it. And the model goes like this, like it's ridiculously simple in its construct, which was, look, individuals will come to you, find out if they have problems you can help them navigate. They charge you $10,000 a month for one call a week. They're on a 6-month minimum engagement, and you do a 4-hour SWOT analysis to start. That's the entire model. That's everything. I'm like, how is that even possible that somebody would pay $2,500 per phone call?
Right.
And they said, well, they get unlimited text too. I'm like, seriously, like, how does this work? And I happened to go to another mastermind, and, we're all sitting around doing hot seats. And at the end, I had added some value to a few people who had some questions participating. And they looked at me and they said, do you have a question? And I just said, has anybody heard of this advisory model where you can actually just get paid to guide younger entrepreneurs or people that are stuck because you happen to have done a thing or two? And the person to my right said, yeah, I do that. I make, my clients pay me $20,000 a month for a call a week. Another guy on the other side said, I do $10,000 a month, but it's only 2 calls a month. I was just flabbergasted. I go off to lunch. I'm sitting in a corner by myself, and a guy who was in that same group comes and joins me at the table. And we're chatting, and he says, "Are you seriously considering doing that advisory thing?" I said, "I think I got to pay attention to this. Like, it seems almost too good to be true." And after a brief conversation, he goes, "I'd like to be your first client." I was flabbergasted. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what to do or how to do it, but I just dove in like I would anything else.
Right.
And I started to deconstruct the model. And, that was the beginning, the genesis of it all. And there were some speed bumps. It wasn't a pure path. But what I found was there are individuals who are running businesses that are totally tapped out, stressed out. They're on the hustle hamster wheel. They can't get off. They don't know what to do. And what they really need is a wingman. They need somebody to give them the confidence in making good decisions, which are usually centered around things they know they need to do, but don't have the courage to do. And when they hear somebody reinforce that your team isn't properly aligned, that person's not in the right seat of the bus, you need to, shed all the things that you're doing that aren't adding value to your clients, any number of things, which I think anybody that's got experience in business, regardless of the business you're in, you could be an agency owner, you could be an attorney, you could be any small business owner that's seen a thing or two, help the younger generation confidently make the decisions. Because in the end, Will, what we've all learned, I think I could say confidently, is that failing fast is the best thing anybody could do. It's going quickly and iterating fast that where it gets you where you need to go. And people need the confidence to do that. Now, you can't give bad advice, and there are times when you have to go deep on things. But today with AI and the tools that you could build, like we built for ourselves, I run a multi-million-dollar consultancy, or in this case, advisory, with no employees, and have earned over $8 million in equity and $2 million in actual dividends and fees, doing what I do best, loving what I do, working with younger, more energetic people that are thrilled to have somebody who's their corner man.
So that's amazing. Amazing that you were able to turn that, to start over like that. And with the success that you've had. You mentioned to me before we popped on a little bit about personal branding and how that was part of what you had to do to kind of build this out. What did that look like for you? What did that entail? How did you develop that? Because you're talking about, my guess, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that your network does not, your network from your previous life before you kind of started over probably didn't consist of a lot of younger entrepreneurs that knew you. So you're reaching out to a new audience. Talk to me, because we do a lot of personal branding in our business. It's a lot of what we do with the people that we work with. Talk to me a little bit about what you did to kind of establish that brand with those younger entrepreneurs, younger business owners, to let them know, hey, I have the knowledge that you need to help you take that next step to kind of get off the hustle wheel. What does that look like?
Well, it looks like failure to start with.
Of course, it's for most people that we work with, it's a long game to build out that personal brand. So
yeah, so I had something going in my favor. Like if you hit my LinkedIn profile, I'm blessed to have a lot of personal endorsements from people that I worked with that think I helped them and did a good thing. And I was proactive. I mean, if we had a good engagement, I'd say, hey, if you don't mind dropping a note on LinkedIn, I'd appreciate it. And many did. And so that was a checkbox. So I had some social proof that I'm not a complete idiot or an ass to work with. But when I got started, one of the things I knew I needed to do, so I had a barrier actually. So the thing is, if I had just put up my shingle and said, I help health professionals grow and scale their business, because I've supported I've supported probably a dozen to 24 New York Times bestselling authors, helped create multiple 7 and a few 8-figure brands in health from doctors that were stuck in their brick and mortar practice and wanted to gain leverage and stop seeing patients, not unlike attorneys want to stop doing trials.
Right.
And so in the health space, if I said I'm available, they would have beat a path to my door. But I had a non-compete where I had built the greatest reputation. I couldn't solicit or go for business
in the health industry. Is that correct?
Yeah. It would have been a douchey thing to do, just to call it what it is.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it because, I considered who I worked with before, my sister from another mister. She's amazing. I didn't want to do anything to split the brand. So, okay, I got to go start something new. So here's what I did. Step one, I'm scrolling TikTok, and because Meta and Mark Zuckerberg listen to what you're thinking, I start seeing the ads for get featured in press. All the press I had was all health related. And I'm like, well, yeah, I need to go get the bugs on my website as seen on and featured articles. So I paid $5,000 to get 5 articles done in 5 or fewer weeks. And 12 weeks later, I had nothing to show for it. Not a single article was written, nothing. And I was talking to the guy who sold it to me. I'm like, look, do you guys need help? I could build some automation systems. I could write it for you. Like, what do we do to get this unstuck? I'm trying to get my website done and get everything working. And he was offended at the fact that I insulted their inability to get stuff done. And it pissed me off. So I started to figure out how that industry worked. And I wound up actually creating for myself a product I needed. We call it Authority Press. It's one of the brands now in my little venture studio. But with Authority Press, we're able to get 5 articles out that you have editorial control over, that position you as an authority in your particular niche to your ideal customer, published in one of 50 magazines. And we can do that for in 1/5 the time and for 1/5 the price of working with most of these pay-to-play systems. And so that was the first thing I did, is I got 5 articles written that I wrote candidly, or had written for me through Authority Press. Second thing is I needed an authority website, and I knew the basic structure to do that. So I got somebody on Fiverr to help, lay it out and get it done, and found the best photo of me I could possibly find for the hero header and did that and threw up a website. I decided, because I'd done it before, like I said, helped over a dozen people write New York Times bestselling books. And again, with AI, it's gotten a whole lot easier. I didn't have a book on the shelf, but I thought, what's the story I want to tell? What does my audience want to hear? And inevitably, anybody who's looking for an advisor wants to get off the hustle hamster wheel. They're done. And so I played with various LLMs and GPTs. Sorry. And in that model, I discovered, I had it work through for me what would be a good angle for a book, what would be a book title, what would be book chapters. And then I built an agentic system to write the book. So I built a system to write the book. Hustle Doesn't Scale. We launched it 2 years ago. First version got to #1 in 5 categories on Amazon. Now I'm a best-selling author. And I did that by writing also a book funnel. So it was an authority website, authority book funnel, Authority Press. And the only thing I didn't do, which would have been the next, honestly, is what we're doing right now. I would have said, hey, I need to get on podcasts. I need to start to get visibility. I need to start making those connections. I had done podcasts before. The last time that got me into the company that I took to the Inc. 5000 was by starting a podcast. I started a podcast called Your Best Life. It was #1 new and noteworthy in Apple and iTunes. And while it had tons of downloads and everything else, the real gift of that podcast, the thing that made it work for me, was all the connections I got to have during the interviews. And so my very first guest was JJ Virgin, who's a 4-time New York Times bestselling author, creator of the Virgin Diet, and also Mindshare Collaborative. And after I did actually 2 podcast interviews with her, she invited me to one of her events. We became friends. And the next year, I'm the CEO of Mindshare Collaborative.
I love to hear that, because we preach so much to our clients. You need a podcast. Well, who's going to listen to me talk about this or that?
It's not who listens to you.
It's great if you have it. Exactly. It's who you get to meet and network with on them. It's an amazing networking tool. It's the whole reason that we do the podcast that you're on right now. Is it's to make connections.
Meta moment for me.
Yeah. I like I said, I love to hear when people, are practicing what we preach. It's fantastic. So that's great. So how long did that overall, all the authority building that you're talking about, what was the time frame for that? How long did that take you to get up and going?
From the moment that I decided I got screwed from the prior PR company until the time I got to $500,000 a year, exercising with the tools I built was 90 days.
So 90 days, is that 90 days to where you have people kind of knocking at the door to say, hey, I want to work with you? Or
what's the 90 days to a $500,000 a year run rate, working 6 hours or less a week?
That's incredible. So you're leveraging your experience on top of all that. It's just, it's
yeah. I mean, I had an unfair advantage. I've won multiple marketing awards. I know how to build a funnel. I've gotten 2 Comma Club awards from ClickFunnels. I get the game of marketing and positioning.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't want to do, it was for me more of who, not how at the time, but I didn't have the money to pay for who. Now, if I had the money, I would have done it differently.
Right.
But I think what I had going for me, to be fair, because I don't want to paint a picture that's unrealistic for anyone else, is #1 is I had a reputation that was positive. You can't Google and find anything about me negative anywhere, because I really worked hard my whole life to do right by people, to always give more value than they thought they paid, to be kind, to be generous. And so I think that you have to do over years to be in the position I was to then within 90 days restart. So that was number one. Number two is I was willing to ask for help and acknowledge that I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know this model. I didn't know how the model worked. I didn't know what the expectations. My old mindset was, oh my God, to get to $500,000 a year, I'm going to have to work so hard and get deep into these companies and their brands and produce amazing results, because that was my programming for decades.
Right.
And so I had to unlearn that. I had to work on my mindset. I needed some coaching. John Assaraf helped me a ton. So I needed the model, Roland. I needed the mindset, John. I needed to know how to build a effective messaging system. I know how to do it, but when I used to write before, I mean, I built websites, I built marketing campaigns, but it would take months of copy. But now with LLMs, if you know how to ask the right question and frame it, and you know the various frameworks that you use to make high converting copy. For me, like, I built my website in 2 days. I wrote my articles in 1 day. I wrote my book funnel in a day and a half. And I was blessed that, my wife knows how to use Canva and can create graphics and mock up a book. And I got the outline for the book. So I actually was number one in Amazon in 5 categories in my book before the book was written, because Amazon will give you, I don't know, it's almost like 4 to 6 months to actually release the book after you post it. So now I've got a website that says Karl Krummenacher. If you go to karlkrummenacher.com, you could see it. And I've got the social proof right there. The article's written about me that's talking about changing how we look at business to get off the hustle hamster wheel, how hustle doesn't scale. And the articles were expressly written by prior clients who talked about, I didn't talk about me in the articles, like, look at Karl, he's so cool. It was like, here's a profile on Michael and Isabella Wentz, who went from struggling, taxed out, and completely overworked to having a high 7-figure business, making millions net while they're working 6 to 10 hours a week. And then within the article, they're like, and it's because we had a great mentor named Karl who told us how to do X, Y, and Z. And so I put together those articles, and then I just shared it with my list. I said, hey, here's my site, here's my book. I'd love for you guys, if you find value, take a look at the book. I sold it for 99 cents to get the sales up to begin with. And then friends, jumped in and they said, I know somebody you should talk to. So to be candid, I think I generated 2 leads that were cold, but everything else was, once people knew what I was doing and saw my positioning, and this is key, they saw my new positioning and they understood what I was doing and the value that I brought, they were happy to make referrals.
Right.
And so it was, people who knew who I was that said, hey, will you work with me? One of my businesses is a telemedicine clinic. And I had actually coached that individual 8-9 years prior. When she was launching the business, she was part of the mastermind. She happened to call me out of the blue, and she looked me up. She saw the website. She says, oh my gosh, he's now out. I could talk to him. And she had a question. She's like, Karl, I've got leads. I get on a TikTok and I generate 300 leads every time I do a TikTok for my thyroid clinic. But nope, not everybody is in Texas. I'm only licensed in Texas. What should I do? That was her big problem. She thought she needed to create a course to train other doctors to take care of thyroid patients, because she was well known for that. And all I had to do there was help her walk through, like, well, why wouldn't you take care of the patients? Well, we're not licensed in all 50 states. Well, how do we get licensed in all 50 states? I don't know. That sounds complex. Why don't we launch a telemedicine business? And everybody works where they are, but we get the licenses and we do it. And we did that. And for the last 2 years, that company's been on the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company list, and in the top 100 of healthcare companies on the Inc. list, because she was high energy, amazing, likable personality, was willing to take action, totally coachable, amazing partner. And I knew I had the wisdom to say, here's the business strategy and the methods that we need to use your existing team and do that. And that business doubled in each of the last 3 years, not from my effort, but by being able to guide a team willing to do the effort if they just knew what to do.
Amazing. So impressive. Like, you're hitting home runs right and left. And I know we all have strikeouts, but I mean, it sounds like you've had.
I have had plenty. I could tell actually the failures are far bigger than the successes.
Well, but like if you're a professional baseball player and you hit 27% of the time, you're a really good baseball player. So, I think it works out the same way a lot of times in life as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the future. As we're kind of wrapping up here, Karl, this has been an amazing conversation. So you've been around long enough to see huge shifts in how business works, from pre-internet business to SaaS to digital everything. What excites you the most about where entrepreneurship is headed, say, in the next 5 years? And I know AI has a lot to do with that, but kind of tell me where your head's at as far as what things are looking like.
Yeah, what a wonderful question. Spent a lot of time thinking about this, and like many, I'm sure, of your audience, reading, listening, watching, seeing what's going on. Here's my take. My belief is that AI will be the greatest enabler that we've ever had, and there will be people that will use it for good and those will use it for bad. It's like anything. There's a theory called Javon's paradox, which is really fascinating. A lot of people are scared to death about AI eating their lunch. It's going to result in lawyers losing their work because people can write up agreements just immediately. It's going to result in doctors not being needed to do, look at radiology imaging because AI can find the cancer or the problem faster than anything else. But Javon's paradox has proven over the years that when new tools come, it results in more, not less, of what people do properly applied. A good example would be ATMs. When ATMs came out, everybody thought there will be no, tellers as an employment opportunity will go to zero. It'll be really difficult to get employment. Banks are going to cut back. But actually, banking exploded, and it wound up with more smaller satellite offices where the bankers became relationship managers, as you probably recall when that pivot happened. Maybe you're not old enough, but I remember when there were tellers and now they're relationship managers. And so it's an opportunity for employers and their employees with this tool set to actually undo, decouple from the things that really cause us all of our stress, like the minutia, the things that aren't fun, that just, repetitive over and over through automation and AI, and really hone in on how can we be more creative? How can we be more collaborative? How can we listen better? How do we get greater relationships? So I think we're going to move from a outcome-based employment model where I'm hiring you to get an outcome to a relationship-based model where I'm hiring you because you create a better experience for my team, for my customers, and for others. So the big opportunity is, how do you leverage AI to create better experiences, which is really what's going to separate you. Because look at it this way. Every time efficiency has been part of a change in the world, there's one of two ways it can go. When you get greater efficiency, you can either keep the price the same and increase your profit. And so you're not changing your service delivery. You're doing what you did, but your profit goes up. And so your focus is on profit, which typically results in a race to the bottom because others will do the same. Then they'll cut your price because they're going to try to win customers that way. And you're going to cut, and it just goes down to nothing. And those businesses always go out of business. The other thing you could think about, though, is if I got greater efficiency, how could I redeploy the new capital and free cash flow that I have to create a better experience for my client, which keeps me in a dominant position with my customers? So I think that's what's going to happen, is that the businesses that embrace less hustle, more scale through AI and automation, so that the employers and their teams both earn more money, work less, but are really more present and are really more focused on creating better experiences and relationships with their clients. I mean, my mom told me that when I was, in grade school going into high school. She said, "Karl, you got to learn to play golf." I said, "Why?" She goes, "If you play golf, that's where all the good deals are made. You make friendships, you're meeting people all the time." And I resisted. I was all sassy. And I said, if they're not going to do business with me because I provide a superior product and a superior outcome, or like my dad, then I don't want to talk to them. They're stupid. They don't understand how good it is. But the reality is, my richest friends are not my smartest friends. They don't have the best products. They have the best relationships. They built deep friendships with people that would do business with them just because they like them. I think that's the opportunity, is to go back to being more personal in what we do, not less personal. and spend more time customer facing and team facing and doing things. So, my whole book, Hustle Doesn't Scale, is about getting to the really 4-day work week, where people are looking forward to Monday as much as they do Friday, because they have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. They get a full cycle to recharge. They're going to show up more creative, more energized, more ready to tackle something interesting, because the idea of no work isn't where we're going. People would wither and die. We need purpose in our life.
100%.
We need challenges in our life. So that's where I think it's going. I think we're going to I think smart businesses will focus on creating environments that de-hustle their workplace so that they can attract the best people who they would really love to work with and who would really create great value to their customers. And they'll be able to do that by embracing automation and an AI in whatever form suits their business, so that they and their employees could work less. Because if you don't do this, here's my word of caution to your audience. I believe if you don't take that approach, if you're just in it to win it and you're going to keep doing what you've been doing, you put your head in the sand and say, look, I'm just going to do what I do. I know what I do. This is how we're going to work. You'll lose the best employees to the employers who will give 4-day work weeks, and give people Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, where the work is more collaborative and creative.
I love everything that you just said. We have been embracing AI in our business and using it a lot of GPT and LLMs and all that good stuff to take care of the minutia, like you said. And I have seen really this year, we were using it before this year, but really this year, we have been able to spend so much more face time with our clients, just building that relationship and really talking to them about what's important to them, what's causing them issues, and digging down deep into how we can help them. And I think that applies to everyone. So love hearing that. That is music to my ears. And I think a lot of people will take those words to heart. Karl, this has been such a great conversation. I've taken so much from this. This has been outstanding. Before we wrap it up here, let people know how they can get in touch with you, with your business. Let them know where they can get the book. This is your chance to kind of give that plug, put it out there.
Oh, you're so kind. Yeah. Well, first of all, karlkrummenacher.com. That's my personal website. You can reach me there. And if you need some help building authority quickly, you'd like to get some feature articles, we have a very cool tool that uses AI to do agentic interviews. You get to talk to what feels like a person. It's a voice-enabled tool, gets an interview, writes feature articles about what you want to write. And only if you approve it and you love it would you ever pay a dime. That's at authoritypress.pro. And I think that's probably the best resources for your audience.
Awesome. Love to hear it, Karl. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope we can continue talking off the podcast, because like I said, I've taken so much from this conversation, and we're going to have to get you back on soon. But we appreciate you giving us some time today. And those of you that are watching live out there today, we appreciate you joining in. And if you're watching the recorded version on YouTube, we appreciate you guys as well. Please make sure you give a like and subscribe to the channel, because we've got more great interviews like we've just done with Karl here coming up. I got another one later today, as a matter of fact. So hopefully we'll see you guys in a few hours. But thank you guys for joining us and for joining Karl here on Partnership for Profits. And we'll see you next time.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.